recognition where the big fishing industries will benefit from the FTA. Right now, we have an ongoing campaign against one of the biggest corporate that is exporting tuna in Europe, which is the Citra Mina. And we are now in our 1.5 year of campaign for union recognition, and we also exposed the violation of the company on issues of occupational health and safety and tragic death of fishermen who were in the seas fishing, but without benefits at all. Secondly, because of that campaign as well, the network were able to come up with a fishers agenda that we push for, including the issues on the threat from the FTAs, the investment policies, the climate and environment related concerns, and social protection and livelihood aspects of the fisher folks. On these initiatives, there are also publications and research that were conducted in this aspect. We also engaged in different formations of positions of the network by conducting conferences and engaging the government in different aspects. Last year, the network engaged the Department of Trade and Industry. It's the leading government institutions in negotiating with free trade agreements with other countries. So in that meeting, we were able to emphasize the concerns of our network, and a government official eventually acceded that they would be informing us of social impact assessments on IPR, on public health, on labor and fisheries. But as I understand right now, as I'm speaking, it's not yet given to the network. So we will continue to engage the DTI and the government about it. We also push the government to capacitate the Department of Labor officials to know the trade issues, because our Ministry of Labor, Department of Labor, is not part of the economic cluster. So they are more concerned on labor rights, but on trade issues and investments affecting labor rights and workers' welfare, they don't have any idea about it. So the network pushed for the capacity of these officials so that they can sit in the negotiation, know the labor rights, and how do we put forward about it. In the international campaign, it's very important. We support, the network support the campaign on binding treaty on TNCs that we were able to have that last June. And Philippines voted for it, for the binding treaty. Unfortunately, and this is a challenge for the European trade unions to engage the European Union, because they voted no. No, they voted no on the binding treaty. Second, on regional forums and conferences, there are several speaking engagement from the network, like Joseph Urganan, Joshua, on trade and investments. And in these conferences, the network were able to input our concerns on the effects, the negative impact of the free trade agreement. We also are part of the WTO forum, particularly we are part of the campaign in Bali, and other issues like ASEAN integration, focusing on ASEAN integration. We also focused and included in our campaign the climate justice. We participated in the climate space in New York and in Climate Justice Summit, among other things. We also, at the national level, continue to be part of the network, the Alianza Tigil Mina, that is against the mining corporations extracting and destructing the environment, in support of the community there, and in support of the IPs, among others. From the climate justice, we also it's also important among our networks, in particular Centro, that the role of the migrant workers and the importance of the migrant workers in these aspects. So we have also have advocacy for migrant workers' rights at the national, regional, and international level. That led to as well to the publication of our book, the License to Exploit, wherein money agencies were delisted or either penalized, and this extends to not only in Hong Kong but in other parts of Asia. Yeah, in building international relations solidarity, we connected with the SEIU with respect to the campaign on McDonald's, the Global Housekeeping campaign on IUF and ITF, the ITUC regarding supply chain, precarious work and minimum wages, and support for Cambodian struggle regarding their national strike. Recently, we continue to engage the Transnational Institute. We hope to further engage and revive the social movement for alternative Asia and the Treaty Alliance as well. So the negative impact brought about by the FTAs and other free trade agreements, the WTO agenda, the climate change, militarization and attacks of workers and welfare is part of a bigger problem. It will require not just a engagement with the institution, but a systemic change. Earlier, I said that the campaign on militarization is also important because of the presence of, for example, in the Philippines, the presence of U.S. Troops. It's not about military exercises, it's about protecting the interests of the transnational corporations. And it's as a part also of protecting its interests in the region. So we continue to engage that. We continue to support the campaign on Gaza. 2 minutes. All right. Okay. So I'm sorry. Yeah, in summary, we should engage in all arenas of struggle. So one is the mass movement and social movements. We have to strengthen. We have to intervene in the political and governance arena. We have to continue to posit alternatives. So we must include the trade unions in pursuing social transformation, and we have to build up international solidarity. Sorry.
We've all raised this point about involving more the trade unions, and I think the short intervention of Edwin showed that there are entry points for trade unions to be involved in the, not just the trade campaign, but all the broader campaign on economic policies, including climate. And I think focusing specifically on your efforts with Sintramina on the fishing sector, I think it's an important breakthrough that where we were able to link very strong trade union concern to the trade agenda of the Philippines to push the tuna sector as an export winner. So I think we have a problem again. It's not working? Okay. It's okay? Yeah. Okay, so again, thanks to Edwin. And now maybe we can segue to Rolin. Edwin made a strong challenge to European groups. No?
Let's try to be a little bit more dynamic. We don't have to say everything in our first intervention. We can have several things. Yeah? But we have many people here involved, so let's be quick and get to many people.
You said that 2 times, so I will take over. I will try to be brief. I'm speaking here on behalf of the Transnational Institute and in Amsterdam, and then I can't hear you. Sorry, is it better like this? Okay. I'm speaking here on behalf of the Transnational Institute and the Centre for Research on Multinational Corporations based in Amsterdam. And we're both parts of the Seattle to Brussels network, the European network working on trade and investment issues. So for years we've been campaigning on trade issues, investment issues, when the EU was negotiating agreements with developing countries, and we never managed to get very much response in public opinion here in Europe. It was very hard to get attention to these issues. But now I think our critique is gaining momentum with the TTip negotiations, because that is bringing all the issues onto the doorstep of European citizens. We have managed, I think, in some member states more than in others, but to really create a lot of fuss about, especially ISDS and the TTip, to the extent that it's even beginning to affect political positioning, where we have Jean-Claude Juncker speaking out against incorporating ISDS in the TTip, even some very tentative remarks on that from the new Trade Commissioner in the European Commission. But also recently the Vice Chancellor of Germany speaking out against ISDS, the French Trade Minister leading British politicians. So there is something going on, even if it still remains to be seen how far they will take that, because they are also playing to public opinion where people are getting increasingly concerned about ISDS. But that there is some room for some window of opportunity. The risk is that we are now focusing very much on ISDS exclusively, which has the risk that that will eclipse our much wider trade critique and much more fundamental and systemic critiques that we have on this whole neoliberal trade and investment model, and also that it eclipses the focus on other FTAs that the EU is negotiating at the moment. At the same time, we want to direct our energies in this push to get ISDS off the table, because if that works, that would be a major victory, and it would really offer a lot of scope to bring in the rest of our critique as well. So it's a bit of a split there. If we want to shift ISDS, then that requires a lot more pressure, so a lot of our energies will have to go there. Because we're definitely not there yet. The EU is still betting on, in response to public opinion, but still betting on a reform agenda of ISDS, so that they're not taking on board our structural critique. They say we can reform this system. There's been a lot of analysis from the academic world why the reform proposals of the EU fall hopelessly short. So we're trying to bring that into debate as well. There is a real challenge also in our focus on ISDS in the TTip, is that while we're focusing on the TTip, the EU is quietly trying to push through the trade agreement with Canada that they've recently finished the negotiations on, and that has that reformed ISDS mechanism in it, and if that gets pushed through, then the battle to get ISDS out of the TTip is more than half lost. So I think one of the challenges for us at the moment here in Europe is to redirect our energies also to stop ISDS in the CETA. So in terms of strategy, we have the challenge to build more pressure around ISDS, to extend the public debate to all the other pernicious elements that are in these trade and investment agreements, to ensure that we can bring enough pressure to stop ISDS from being brought in through the back door of CETA, at the same time, we're also dealing with a new European Parliament that was recently elected, where we still have to do some capacity building for new members to really understand these issues, I think, because they're so high ages there. That's something that S2B is working on today. We will be organising a training for new MEPs and Seattle to Brussels network, that people, for MEP and their assistants. What we're doing is we're lobbying, we're trying to connect and channel all the critical analysis that's out there and bring that to the attention of politicians in Europe, but also in the member states. Trying to also expand at the same time the anti-TTIP coalitions to build more popular resistance and bring more pressure in public opinion. So we've been trying to connect with the trade unions. Recently in Holland, where I'm based, we've had some success and actually they staged a meeting and we got some leading people in the trade unions interested in the topic, so there might be something moving there, and hopefully the same is happening in other member states. That would be really good. We've been trying to connect with environmental movements, where fracking is of course an issue that is big in TTIP, and that would connect them. We've been connecting with farmers' organisations on food security and food standards, agriculture, and then there is the anti-austerity measures with ISDS cases emerging, so that is a rallying point as well. And then using all these issues also to try and get more attention for these issues in the media, so that broader public opinion is also rallying. But it's a big challenge with limited resources. In terms of alternatives, that's the question you always get. You're against, but what is your alternative? S2B has been engaged in developing an alternative trade mandate. Sorry, I'll be quick. And that lists a number of principles to further thinking about the more fundamental paradigm shift that we talked about in earlier workshops as well. There's much more to say, but I think I can leave it at that, and then we'll just take it into the discussion. Next.
Thanks, Rolene. Maybe I apologize to the speakers. We have very limited time. That's only because we want to have more time for discussion. And we can get back to you on some of the issues. And I think maybe for the discussion later is how the ISDS has become a big agenda is something that we can learn from. We're also in Asia trying to increase the profile of the threat of ISDS, so it would be a good lesson for us to learn, to understand how you've been able to do it and put it as one of the main concerns. Of course, mindful of the risks as well in as you pointed out, having solely a focus on a particular issue without having a broader analysis of the other contentious issues and elements of the agreement. So we segue now to who's next?
There are too many acronyms in our language as we. There's a big challenge in our strategy discussion. We should make an effort not to use so many acronyms. Yes, please. But just to be sure, as we talk a lot about the investor-to-state dispute settlement, is for everybody here in the room clear when these acronyms are used? Yeah? Because we were losing people if we just not clarify if all these acronyms are clear. Yeah? So if we are saying that investor-to-state dispute settlement is very important, then is that clear where we are talking about? Yeah? If not, it's no problem. You can raise the issue, yeah? No problem. So it's clear, yeah?
Okay, I think if we have, if you hear an acronym that you don't understand, then we can just raise your hand and we can ask that person to define it further. But, and again, following what Tom's earlier intervention, that this is a bit more interactive, I'm just going through the list of initial speakers. I hope it's okay that we follow that process, give them the 5 minutes, and then we open it up for discussion. Otherwise, it's also okay if you have a burning comment or question to immediately raise it. So, read
It
first.
just might be just an innovation to, like we've had 2 speakers, or maybe people
Translation is needed.
comments, additions, and then we go to the next people. Maybe, I don't know if people would like that, because we've had a lot of long panels, and so maybe, yeah, maybe people can...
I think that the idea was to have one more speaker from Italy
Yes.
to give the context of the member states, and then you have a discussion.
Very good, okay.
Yeah, we will split, as I said, we split it into 2 parts. So maybe we can open the discussion on the first part, lessons and strategies, after we hear the two speakers from Italy. So can I call on Rosa? Sergio? Sergio?
And then we asked for Eleonora here.
Eleanor.
She's a lab from Italy.
Okay, okay.
Will Sergio speak in Italian or?
Sorry?
Will Sergio speak in
In
Italian?
Italian, but we add consecutive.
We would have consecutive translation for Italian speakers. Yes, Tom.
Just before we go to Italy, I think it's important, something we maybe have not clarified yet, but there is a process of networking since 1 year or more than 1 year already between the US and the Europe on the transatlantic trade investment agreement. So we have already a very high level of networking and mobilizing, and the European Action Day of today is 400 actions in 22 countries, is also a result of the networking we have already done. So we had already covered a way to come here. So we are very far from starting from zero. And I also think the high level of mobilization in the US on the Trans-Pacific Agreement is an important basis for our engagement between the movements in Europe and the US. And I think this is the linkage we want to look today here, because here are the Asian movements who are working also on the Trans-Pacific Agreement. And for example, the US organization stopped the US Obama administration to get, it's called the fast track, which allows the Obama just to bypass the parliament to negotiate trade agreements. So for the US groups, it was an important political step in the last months to stop the fast track in the US, and this was in relation to the Trans-Pacific. So today, the US groups we are working with, human rights, trade unions, environmental organizations, they are much more focusing right now on the Trans-Pacific Agreement than on the Transatlantic Trade Agreement. So this is also something I would like to challenge here, because these are your counterparts in Asia fighting against the Trans-Pacific Agreement, and I think there were very interesting things, like in Australia, for example, the movement which blocked the investor-to-state dispute settlements in the last years in relation to their government. So I think these are interesting things where we can have already some of the small victories. And also from the European side, I think we are very proud of this 1 year of networking, and we made very interesting steps forward. And I think this is also what really wanted to challenge when we're saying that there's an open window of opportunity, and we have now hundreds of organizations signing letters. We have the biggest trade unions involved in saying suspension, not just we want to change. It's not. Yeah, it's an intervention. And I want to challenge
Because we decided to go to feed the intervention and then we go back. So
for me it is an intervention. I think we can be a little bit more progressive.
Yeah, I think we have to strike a balance, because we've also developed a program and we've invited some people to start the discussion, to be able to go through that agreed program as well. But at the same time, be more flexible in trying to get more inputs from the floor. So I think we need the cooperation of everybody in making sure that we get out of this workshop what we hope to achieve, which is clearer strategies, more ideas for cooperation and coordination. So having said that, let me call our Italian friends to give their inputs on strategies and lessons. Who will go first now?
Sì. Allora, faccio parte della redazione di una rivista che si chiama NN Online. Questa rivista si propone di guardare gli eventi da una posizione non miope, mettendo lo sguardo su ciò che accade fuori dal scenario istituzionale, quello del grande schermo, cercando di vedere, di capire e aiutando a capire la complessità degli eventi che a cui ci troviamo davanti, che sono offuscati dalla disinformazione.
Can you hear me without microphone, or is it easier if I use the microphone?
Please use the
Microphone.
microphone.
I use the microphone. Okay, I work for for a magazine which is called NN Online, and this magazine, by its trade, looks at the event from a far-reaching standpoint. So we focus on whatever is outside of the big picture, because we want to understand the complexity behind the official events, which very often are clouded by some kind of misinformation or bad information.
Nei nostri seminari di elaborazione abbiamo intuito la pericolosità del trattato di TTip e su questo trattato stiamo lavorando da più di 6 mesi. Questo trattato viene annunciato come un evento straordinario per le opportunità economiche di crescita, perché porterebbe a facilitare i commerci tra Europa e Stati Uniti. Ma evidentemente c'è un prezzo che qui dobbiamo pagare.
In our seminars, we've been focusing on the danger of the TTIP treaty, and we've been working on that for more than 6 months now, because it's sold as something that offers an extraordinary economic opportunity, especially for trade between the European Union and the US, but obviously there is a big price to pay for that.
La verità è che nel settore dell'alimentazione, ad esempio, gli standard comuni che attualmente sono vigenti avranno sicuramente un abbassamento, un pericoloso abbassamento dei loro livelli di sicurezza, e i beneficiari di questo accordo, quando e se verrà fatto, saranno soltanto le multinazionali dell'alimentazione, con buona pace dei consumatori.
The truth is, especially in the area of food, in way of example, the truth is that the common standards that are currently enforced are actually threatened by a big danger relating to safety, especially with regard to food. So the only beneficiaries of this treaty, if it is ever signed by all parties involved, will be for multinational companies working in the food industry, forgetting the benefit of consumers.
Sarà prevista quindi una normativa comune che andrà ad omologare le normative tuttora esistenti, di cui parlerò dopo, e ci sarà, quel che è peggio, un tribunale transatlantico del commercio che le farà rispettare. Attraverso questi enti le corporation potranno chiedere ed ottenere sanzioni contro quegli stati che dovessero in qualche misura limitare la portata dell'accordo attraverso norme di tutela nazionale.
So there will be a common set of standards superimposed to the present standards, and also what the treaty aims to do is also to set up transatlantic courts for trade, or transatlantic tribunals for trade, enforcing those common standards. What will happen if the treaty is signed is that big corporations will be able to raise sanctions against those states who will possibly introduce limitations to the treaties. Therefore,